Hello, good afternoon. My name is Elleryn Cuayuca from the Faculty of Languages from WAP. And today I am going to explain the topic that is English. It changes and relationship with historical events over time. I have reviewed the three main periods of evolution of the English language. The three periods are Old English period, Middle English, and Modern English, that it's divided on early Modern English and late Modern English. Firstly, Old English, we focus mainly on describing some of the changes that have occurred in the English language in terms of writing, pronunciation, lexis, and grammar, but the development is most evident in vocabulary and grammar. Some Old English words of Latin origin that have survived into modern English include the words belt, butter, chalk, chest, cup, fan, etc. The term Anglo-Saxon comes from two Germanic tribes, the Angles and the Saxons. The Old English itself has three dialects: West Saxon, Kentish, and Anglian. The families to West Germanic are North Germanic with Old Norse. Many Old English words are no longer used in modern English, and the inflectional structure was far more rich than is true of its modern descendant. However, with small spelling differences and sometimes minor meaning changes, many of the most common words in Old and Modern English are the same. Old English was a synthetic language. It means that inflectional index signal grammatical structure and word order was rather free. The word order becomes much more free, and word inflection and meaning become even more important for deducing syntax. The most important of these changes was the introduction of a new set of third person plural noun, like they, them, and their. And another grammatical influence was the use of are as the third person plural of the verb to be. Also, they add three genders: masculine, feminine, and neuter. Uh, Also two numbers that are singular and plural, and are also strong and weak. The runic alphabet. Um, the runic alphabet was used to write Old English before the introduction of the Latin alphabet. The earliest runic inscriptions date from 150. The characters were generally replaced by the Latin alphabet as the cultures that had used runes underwent Christianization. Then we have Middle English period. This period was roughly 300 years ago. It is difficult to identify because it is a time of transition between two eras that each have a stronger definition. In this case is Old English and Modern English. The Middle English is mainly to be seen in texts of a religious, political, or administrative character, dozens of which have survived. Most of the surviving material is religious. During the Middle English period that we see the eventual disappearance of most of the early inflections and the increasing reliance on alternative means of expression using word order and prepositional construction rather than word endings to express meaning relationships. The pronunciation system underwent significant change. Several consonants and vowels altered their values. A new contrastive units of sound, like phonemes, emerge. In important fields like ecclesiastical architecture, where French architects in England adapted continental sources for their cathedral designs, vocabulary was particularly impacted. The vocabulary used to articulate this change in perspective was extensive, encompassing everything from construction equipment to aesthetic abstractions. The major literary works of the Middle English period provides evidence of the impact of French. The French lexical content is major linguistic feature. For example, April, March, Pierce, vein, and liquor, and more words. Middle English also saw a huge increase in the use of affixes, also prefixes and suffixes, producing an influx of new words during Middle English that we find the first great flood of these affixes words with French introducing. Prefixes as con, de, this, en, ex, pre, pro, and trans, and suffixes as able, ans, ens, and, inti, men, and shun. The suffixes were especially productive at training, typified by words such as tournament, defendant, solemnity, and avoidance. The shun ending alone produced hundreds of creations, such as damnation, complementation, and suggestion. During the Middle English, we see the evolution of a language which is increasingly exploiting the potentialities of regional, social, and stylistic variation. At one extreme, there was a learned literary style, typically formal and elaborate, characterized by a lexicon of French and Latin origin. The event that began the transition from Old English to Middle English was the Norman Conquest, when William the Conqueror invaded the island of Britain from his home base in northern France and settled in his new acquisition along with his nobles and court. William crushed the opposition with brutal hand and deprived the Anglo-Saxon heirs of their property, distributing it to Normans who supported him. The conquering Normans were themselves descended from Vikings who had settled in northern France about 200 years before. The pronunciation differences between the harsher, more Anglo-Norman and the softer Francian dialect of Paris were also carried over into English pronunciation. For instance, words like quid, question, quarter, etc. were pronounced with the familiar Q sound in Anglo-Norman rather than the K sound of Parisian French. The next The next is the early modern English period. The modern period traditionally applies to works written after the start of World War